Hidden beneath the earth, beneath the water, and beneath the desert sands, another world lies, forgotten, majestic, as if woven from the mysteries of the earth itself. Archaeology is no longer just a science, but the art of bringing the past back to life. Cities that once shone in the sun, the ruins of temples where languages no one understands resounded, and artifacts that defy everything textbooks taught emerge from the depths of time. Each discovery becomes a revelation, a crack in the familiar perception of history through which the unknown emerges. Human history is no longer a straight line from the Stone Age to the present. It's turning into a labyrinth where every discovery leads astray, forcing us to search for a way out anew. In the underground chambers of the pyramids, at the bottom of the seas, and in the depths of the mountains, something lurks, seemingly waiting for its moment. These are not just traces of ancient peoples. They are messages left for those who can read them, and each one resonates ever louder, as if the planet itself is trying to remind us of a forgotten past. We stand on the threshold of a new era of discovery, where science collides with miracles, and facts become more poetic than legends. These stories are not fiction or myths, but truths hidden in stone, dust, and the depths of time. If you're ready to hear the voice of antiquity and tap into the mysteries that change our understanding of humanity and its origins, stay with us. On the west bank of the Nile, where golden sand meets the endless sky, rises a structure that has outlived empires, wars, and time itself. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, the heart of ancient Egypt, a silent witness to human genius. It seemed as if, over the millennia, its walls had revealed all their secrets. But in the 21st century, technology has allowed us to peer into places no human has set foot since the time of the pharaohs. And what researchers discovered shocked even the most skeptical scientists. In 2017, the International Scan Pyramids Project team used the innovative technique of muon tomography, a method based on recording elementary particles passing through the thickness of the stone. These particles, generated in the upper atmosphere, are capable of penetrating layers inaccessible to X-rays and radio waves. Their traces allowed the creation of a three-dimensional map of the pyramid's interior. What emerged in the images was sensational. Hidden within, above the Grand Gallery, lies a vast cavity, an unknown chamber whose existence no one had suspected. Scientists have dubbed the discovery the Great Void. Its volume is comparable to a passageway approximately 30 meters long, and it is located almost in the very center of the structure. No ancient text or previous study has mentioned anything like it. It is not connected to the known passages or the king's chamber, remaining isolated, as if deliberately concealed. When the first scan data appeared in the news, the archaeological world froze. Some began talking about a new burial chamber, others about a technical structure designed to relieve the upper vaults. But the mathematical precision with which the blocks were calculated left no doubt. This was no accident. There is no superfluous stone in the pyramid structure. Each slab carries a semantic and architectural meaning. To understand the significance of the discovery, one must recall how the pyramid was built. More than 2 million limestone blocks, each weighing several tons, were installed by hand during the 26th century BC. Even with modern technology, repeating this feat is virtually impossible. The question of why space was left inside the monolith, if any void could weaken the structure, is particularly pressing. A group of Egyptian archaeologists suggested that the void may have been part of sacred geometry, embedded in the architecture to reflect religious beliefs about the celestial world. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, the pharaoh ascended to the stars after death, and the pyramid's shape symbolized this ascension. Perhaps the unknown chamber was a metaphysical element, a space intended not for the body, but for the spirit. Other scientists have noted the unusual acoustic properties of the pyramid's interior. Vibrations generated in the narrow corridors are amplified and damped, according to laws more reminiscent of modern engineering than primitive construction. Some have suggested that the voids may have served as a kind of sound capsule, reducing pressure or creating harmonic resonances, ensuring the structure's stability. However, on a practical level, it remains a mystery how ancient craftsmen could calculate such parameters without sophisticated instruments. None of the discovered papyri mention construction drawings or measurement formulas. All indications are that the knowledge was transmitted orally and was a closely guarded secret among priests and architects. Today, researchers are preparing new missions. Specialized micro-drones and robots developed by French and Japanese engineers are to penetrate narrow shafts leading to unknown areas. But Egyptian authorities are exercising caution. Each experiment requires maximum precision to avoid damaging the ancient structures. The pyramid remains closed to any invasive research, and answers may have to wait decades. Meanwhile, the Great Pyramid is once again coming to life in humanity's consciousness, not as a silent monument, but as a living message from the past. Every discovery in its depths reminds us that the story of Egypt has not yet been told to its fullest. And the more science learns, the more mysterious becomes the intentions of those who erected this stone colossus. While the chambers remain sealed, the Great Pyramid remains silent. But in this silence lies the breath of the ages, a call to those who dare to peer into the depths of time. Perhaps it is there, among the blocks weighing tens of tons, that lies the answer to the question of why the ancient Egyptians built a monument that has outlived civilization itself. Off the coast of modern-day Israel, near Cape Atlit, a world older than the Egyptian pyramids and Sumerian ziggurats lies hidden beneath the water. It's called Atlit Yam, a city that sank beneath the sea some 7,500 years ago. Here, at a depth of 10 meters, archaeologists have discovered streets, dwellings, wells, and even traces of rituals left by Neolithic people. This site has become one of the oldest underwater archaeological finds in the world, opening a window into the era when humanity was just beginning to master agriculture and domesticate animals. The city was discovered in the late 20th century when divers accidentally stumbled upon strange stone structures. Underwater, the outlines of limestone houses were visible, arranged in a semicircle, as if people were converging on some sacred center. Finds included stone tools, grain grinders, fishing nets, animal remains, and human skeletons preserved in coastal sediments. Everything suggested that life had once teemed here. One of the most astonishing discoveries was made by a team from the University of Haifa. In the center of the ancient settlement, they found a megalithic circle, 7 vertical stones set around a well from which fresh water gushed. Scientists believe it was a ritual complex associated with a cult of water or fertility. Traces of offerings and the arrangement of the stones indicate that the ritual was performed regularly and possibly seasonally. The researchers discovered a civilization that already possessed a religious worldview and a sense of the sacred. But how did the city end up underwater? Analysis of seabed sediments revealed that around 7,000 BCE, sea levels rose sharply by several meters. This event was linked to the melting of glaciers at the end of the last ice age. The water slowly but inexorably engulfed the coastal lands, inundating settlements. The people living in Atlit Yam likely tried to combat the oncoming disaster by fortifying their dwellings and digging new wells. However, the ocean proved stronger. Everything they had created was buried beneath the waves, preserved in perfect condition to this day. The skeletons found at the site told a tragic story. In one of the houses, archaeologists discovered the remains of a woman and a child. Their bones bore traces of a rare infectious disease, tuberculosis. This marked the first known case of this disease in human history. Thus, Atlit Yam has provided science not only with architectural and cultural artifacts, but also with evidence of an ancient epidemic that struck the first farmers. DNA and artifact analysis revealed that the city's inhabitants lived in communities, shared labor and food, built houses from local stone, and used sophisticated drainage systems. They were not primitive. On the contrary, their level of organization is astonishing for their time. Funeral rituals indicate a sophisticated understanding of death and a belief in something beyond it. Each year, water continues to erode the underwater city. Archaeologists are rushing to document everything they can before the waves completely erase all traces of Atlit Yam. For researchers, this site has become a symbol of the boundary between eras, the moment when humanity first realized that nature can not only nourish, but also destroy. Today, Atlit Yam is called the biblical Atlantis. But unlike myth, everything here is real. Walls, wells, graves, and stone circles bear witness to the life and death of an ancient civilization. This city reminds us that the sea holds not only the secrets of sunken ships, but also entire chapters of human history. And perhaps somewhere deeper, beneath layers of sand and seaweed, other settlements await their time, the traces of those who first stepped from savagery to conscious culture. Atlit Yam is just the beginning. At the very edge of the Japanese archipelago, where the waters of the East China Sea fade into the abyss, lies a mystery that could revolutionize our understanding of ancient human history. Yonaguni Island, the last in the Ryukyu chain, long remained an unknown corner of the ocean. But at the end of the 20th century, it was here, at a depth of 25 meters, that divers stumbled upon what at first glance appeared to be a natural formation. Only later did it become clear. Hidden beneath the water was a structure rivaling the ancient pyramids of Egypt in scale and geometry. The Yonaguni complex is a gigantic stone terrace nearly 300 meters long and about 20 meters high. Its steps are carved with astonishing precision. The angles are precise, the lines are straight, and the proportions are so harmonious that even experienced geologists doubted the natural origin of this formation. Stairs, landings, corridors, massive blocks resembling walls, and projections resembling altars are visible on the surface. The sight of this stone giant evokes the feeling of seeing a sunken temple, where the chants of a long-vanished people once resounded. The first detailed studies were conducted by Japanese marine geologist Masaki Kimura. He devoted over 20 years to studying the monument, diving into the archipelago's murky waters and creating detailed maps of every platform and step. His measurements revealed that the structure was not random. The terrace levels follow a precise system, and the proportions correspond to the principles of ancient architecture. Some blocks, weighing up to 200 tons, lie with precision, as if laid by hand. The scientists concluded that Yonaguni is a man-made structure, created thousands of years before the rise of the known civilizations of East Asia. According to Kimura's calculations, the complex may be over 10,000 years old, placing it in the era when Japan was still connected to the mainland, and sea levels were significantly lower than today. If this data is accurate, the structure arose before the end of the last ice age, long before the first cities of Mesopotamia. For the academic world, this sounded like a challenge. Official science was cautious about the artificial origin hypothesis, arguing that nature is capable of creating geometric shapes. One need only recall the basalt columns of Ireland or Iceland. But even the most cautious researchers admit that, in the case of Yonaguni, the number of patterns is too great to be random. Particularly noteworthy are areas where clear traces of processing are visible: smooth channels, right angles, steps leading to platforms. There's a spot that resembles a road running along the base of the pyramid. On one of the platforms, outlines resembling carvings were discovered, as if symbols had once been carved here, erased by time and waves. All of this raises the possibility of a culture whose traces were lost in the ocean abyss. If the hypothesis of man-made origin is correct, Yonaguni may be part of an ancient coastal city, swallowed by the sea during the melting of glaciers. This would alter the chronology of human civilization, proving that, as early as 10,000 years ago, people possessed engineering skills considered impossible at that time. Perhaps it was the memory of such cities that gave rise to later legends of sunken continents: Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria. But unlike myths, Yonaguni exists, cold, stony, tangible. During their dives, researchers note a strange sensation. The space around them seems to breathe the silence of antiquity. Light glides across the granite walls, catching reflections on the sharp edges, and somewhere below, steps leading into the abyss disappear into the darkness. The sea guards them in its icy calm, in no hurry to reveal its secret. Today, the underwater monument remains a source of controversy, a symbol of the meeting of science and the unknown. Yonaguni is a reminder that humanity's past is deeper than we usually think, and that beneath every wave crest lies evidence of an era long forgotten by history. If a city, built long before the dawn of civilization, truly lies beneath the sea's surface, then its memory lives on in the most ancient layers of human consciousness, like the shadow of a great world that sank beneath the waves but left its mark in stone. On a hilltop in southeastern Anatolia, amid the sun-baked plains of Turkey, stands a place that has forced scholars to rethink everything they knew about the origins of civilization. Its name is Göbekli Tepe, meaning Navel of the Hill. Today it is an archaeological site, but just 30 years ago, it was considered nothing more than a natural eminence. Beneath a layer of earth and stone lay not just an ancient structure, but an edifice so grand and enigmatic that its discovery marked a turning point in our understanding of human history. In the 1990s, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, while exploring a site near the city of Schönleurfa, noticed unusual stone fragments protruding from the ground. Upon excavating, he and his team discovered massive T-shaped columns arranged in rings beneath the surface. Each weighed up to 20 tons and was carved from a single piece of limestone. At the center of each stone circle stood two larger columns, seemingly symbolizing heaven and earth, life and death, or, as archaeologists later suggested, deified ancestors. The age of the discovery astonished everyone. Radiocarbon dating revealed that Göbekli Tepe was built around the 11th millennium BC, more than 6,000 years before Stonehenge and the Giza pyramids. This meant that the complex was built by hunter-gatherers, people who had not yet mastered pottery, writing, or even agriculture. But how did a people without metals manage to move multi-ton boulders and create architecture that required precise engineering calculations? This question remains unanswered. Göbekli Tepe consists of several concentric circles. The surfaces of the columns are covered with bas-reliefs of animals: lions, bulls, foxes, snakes, boars, cranes. Not a single figure is random. Their arrangement resembles something like an ancient cosmic code, a system of symbols where each image had sacred significance. On some stones, human hands are visible, seemingly growing out of the stone. The columns appear not as idols, but as embodied spirits. Schmidt called Göbekli Tepe the first temple of humanity, the place where faith, art, and collective labor first united. Archaeologists believe the temple was used for ritual gatherings by tribes roaming the valleys of Mesopotamia. Here, on the hilltop, they gathered to worship gods no one remembers and perform rites in which life and death were intertwined with the cosmic order. Perhaps these very gatherings marked the beginning of humanity's transition to a sedentary lifestyle. The temple may have been not a consequence of civilization, but its source. People began building, not because they knew how to grow grain, but because they wanted to get closer to the sacred. A particular mystery is the fact that around 8,000 years BC, the temple was deliberately buried. Hundreds of tons of earth and stone carefully covered the sacred circles, as if the creators wanted to conceal them forever. No one knows why. This is not the result of a catastrophe or neglect. On the contrary, everything was done with almost ritualistic meticulousness. Perhaps the cult completed its cycle, and the temple was buried like a living being. Today, Göbekli Tepe towers over the plain like a stone book, its pages read slowly and with difficulty. Every year, new fragments are discovered, each revealing another secret. Scientists are certain that only a small part of the complex has been excavated. Dozens of other circles may be hidden underground, waiting to be discovered. This temple challenged the conventional wisdom about the origins of civilization. It demonstrated that human spiritual awakening preceded practical development, where there were no cities or written language, architecture, art, and a belief in something greater than life itself already existed. As the sun sets behind the hill, the stone columns cast long shadows, and it seems as if time is turning back. Perhaps at this very moment, the spirits of those who built this temple are still watching over us, our descendants, who are only just beginning to understand how long ago the human soul was born. On the Giza Plateau, where the wind has polished golden sand for centuries, the majestic Sphinx towers over the earth like a sentinel of time. Its stone face, facing east, has greeted the dawn for over 4,500 years. However, despite countless studies, this colossus still conceals secrets that baffle scientists. Beneath the surface where its paws rest, instruments detect voids and tunnels whose origins remain unsolved. These secrets have given rise to one of the most intriguing archaeological controversies of the last century. The Sphinx is carved from a single rock. Its body, over 70 meters long and 20 meters high, lies in a depression once hidden beneath the sand. The first modern excavations took place in the 19th century, when Egyptologist Giovanni Caviglia unearthed the figure almost completely. But the subterranean space beneath the Sphinx remained inaccessible for a long time. Only in the 20th century, when geophysical surveys began on the plateau, did it become clear that beneath the monument exist cavities extending deep into the limestone. In the 1970s, an American team led by archaeologist Mark Lehner and engineer Thomas Dobecki conducted a series of acoustic and electromagnetic scans. The results revealed the presence of several voids and narrow tunnels beneath the forepaws and along the body. Reports indicate that some of these extend to depths of up to 12 meters. The scientists cautiously speculated that these spaces could have been ancient quarries or technical passages from the construction period. However, the shape of some chambers appeared too regular, as if designed for a specific purpose. A cavity found beneath the right paw attracted particular attention. Its size and location have led to speculation about the existence of a subterranean chamber, possibly associated with a cult or funerary purpose. Egyptian sources are silent, but ancient texts found in the Temple of Isis mention hallways of knowledge, where priests stored sacred writings and objects. Although there is no direct evidence of this connection, the coincidence of the orientation and scale of the chambers has piqued the interest of even the most skeptical researchers. At the end of the 20th century, a Japanese archaeological mission from Waseda University conducted a follow-up survey using advanced ground-penetrating radar. Their data confirmed the presence of underground structures, linear, multi-level, extending beneath the Sphinx and toward the Pyramid Plateau. The researchers cautiously reported that some of the tunnels likely led to a temple connected to the southern side of the monument. Egyptian authorities, eager to prevent the monument's destruction, banned any excavations, leaving the mystery unsolved. Nevertheless, the research results themselves provide evidence that ancient builders possessed engineering skills far more advanced than is commonly believed. To create a monument of such proportions, carved from a single massif, and yet leave a system of cavities beneath it, requires an understanding not only of architecture, but also of soil properties, pressure distribution, and drainage patterns. This knowledge is astonishing, given that the Sphinx was erected long before the advent of advanced measuring instruments. It is believed that the corridors beneath the Sphinx served not as funerary passages, but as symbolic passages. They may have represented the soul's journey, the transition from the world of the living to the realm of eternity. In this context, the Sphinx itself, combining human intelligence with the strength of a lion, embodied power over time, while the passages hidden beneath it symbolized passage to the secrets of the afterlife. Looking at its wind-worn face, it seems as if the stone holds an expression of infinite knowledge. The Sphinx has survived pharaohs, invasions, earthquakes, and sandstorms, yet it remains silent. Beneath it, areas remain hidden from view, as if the earth itself is unwilling to reveal them too soon. Perhaps one day technology will allow us to penetrate these hidden corridors without destroying the ancient stone, and then humanity will discover what exactly Egypt's most enigmatic guardian holds beneath its paws: the memory of forgotten rituals, the secrets of the stars, or simply the silence of eternity in which history has vanished. In the tropical jungles of Costa Rica, amidst humid mists and dense vines, lie hundreds of smooth, perfect stone spheres. Their shape is so perfect that they seem to have been created by a laser cutter, rather than by the hands of people who lived thousands of years ago. These spheres, ranging in diameter from a few centimeters to over 2 meters, have become one of the most enigmatic archaeological finds in the New World. No one knows exactly why they were created, how they were carved, or why they are scattered across such remote areas of the country. But their existence raises questions about the advanced civilization that left them behind. The first mentions of stone spheres date back to the 1930s, when United Fruit workers, clearing the jungle for banana plantations, stumbled upon dozens of perfectly round boulders. Some lay in groups, while others formed neat lines or geometric shapes, as if aligning themselves into constellations. Several spheres were destroyed by dynamite blasts. The workers hoped to find gold inside, but instead discovered only dense stone. When archaeologists began their study, they discovered that most of the balls were made of gabbro, an extremely hard igneous rock that is extremely difficult to mine and process, even with metal tools. Meanwhile, the ancient inhabitants of Costa Rica, the Diquis culture, had neither metals nor grinding machines. How they managed to shape these stones into a perfect spherical shape remains a mystery. Even modern metrology records deviations within millimeters, which seems impossible for a pre-industrial society. Scientists suggest that the spheres were made by gradually heating and cooling the stone, followed by chipping away excess material and polishing it with sand and water. However, this process would have required decades of continuous labor, suggesting a deeper meaning than mere decoration. The stone spheres likely had ritual or astronomical significance. The placement of some groups aligns with the direction of sunrise on the vernal equinox, while others, according to researchers, may have marked territorial boundaries or served as symbols of power. At some sites, the spheres form precise circles and straight lines, as if guiding a path or creating a stone map. Perhaps they symbolize the stars transferred to Earth. In Central American cultures, the sky has always played a sacred role. The ancients observed the movement of the stars and associated it with the cycles of life, rain, and harvest. In this context, a perfect sphere could represent the harmony of the universe, the unity of Earth and heaven. Many of these artifacts have been moved to museums or private collections, but dozens remain in place, overgrown with moss and vines. Some are barely visible beneath the soil. Others jut above it like ancient clocks ticking away the ages. When the rays of the setting sun touch their surface, they reflect a soft golden light, as if these stones hold the memory of a world in which humans still felt part of nature, not its master. Archaeologists increasingly suggest that the Costa Rican spheres may be the key to understanding the spiritual life of pre-Columbian peoples. They are a symbol of lost knowledge embodied in geometry. After all, the ancients considered the spherical shape to be universal, without beginning or end, perfect as the universe itself. Today, the mysterious stone spheres are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected as priceless testament to human genius. But even protected by time, they remain silent. No inscription, no myth explains their true meaning. Perhaps the answers are lost forever, or perhaps they still await their time in the clayey depths where the spheres rest, unseen for millennia. Amid the sounds of the jungle and the distant cries of birds, it seems as if they still speak, but in a language we have forgotten. Their silence speaks louder than words. Their form a reminder that perfection can be born even in prehistoric darkness. On the eastern banks of the Nile, where the sands of the Sahara merge with the reddish slopes of the Nuba Mountains, stands a kingdom long overshadowed by its great neighbor, Egypt. But it is here, in what is now Sudan, that the pyramids of Meroe lie, silent witnesses to another civilization, equally ancient but almost erased from human memory. Their sharp peaks rise from the desert like petrified tongues of flame, and each one holds the secret of rulers the world learned of too late. The kingdom of Kush, as the ancient Egyptians called this region, existed for over 1,000 years. It emerged after the collapse of the new kingdom of Egypt and became a center of power, culture, and religion, rivaling the pharaohs of the Nile Valley. The capital of the state was initially the city of Napata, and later Meroe, located closer to fertile lands. Here, amidst sand and acacia trees, archaeologists have discovered entire necropolises where dozens of sandstone pyramids rise over an area of several kilometers. They are distinguished not by their grandeur, but by the elegance of their proportions and the precision of their execution. The pyramids of Sudan are much smaller than those of Egypt. They rarely exceed 30 meters in height, but their slopes are steeper and their lines cleaner. Gilded capitals once stood at their peaks, reflecting the sunlight like beacons in the silent desert. Each pyramid belonged to a king or queen who ruled Kush, and beneath each was a burial chamber decorated with reliefs depicting the soul's journey to the afterlife. Of particular interest are the queens of Kush, whom the ancient Egyptians called Kandakes. These women ruled alongside men, led armies, and forged alliances. The most famous of them is Candace's Amanirenas, who challenged Rome in the 1st century BC. Her name is forever etched in the history of Sudan, and historians believe one of the pyramids of Meroe belonged to her. Inside, archaeologists found the remains of a burial bier, gold jewelry, and inscriptions recounting the queen's exploits. But no less impressive is the architectural precision with which these tombs were built. The stone blocks are so tightly fitted that it's impossible to insert even a knife blade between them. Researchers still debate how the builders, lacking iron tools, achieved such precision. They likely used methods inherited from Egypt, but adapted to their own traditions and materials. Unlike the Giza pyramids, whose peaks rise on the horizon, the Meroe's pyramids are almost completely buried in sand. Over centuries, the wind has eroded their stone casing, leaving exposed cores, but even in ruins, they retain their grandeur. When the sun sets behind the dunes, their sharp shadows cast a shadow over the desert, and it seems as if the earth itself recalls the times when prayers to the gods Amun and Isis resounded here. Archaeologists call Meroe African Valley of the Kings. Each mound conceals stories of wars, crafts, trade, and the faith of the people who created one of the most advanced cultures of ancient Africa. Kushite artisans cast bronze, forged weapons, decorated temple walls with frescoes, and wrote hieroglyphs combining Egyptian and indigenous symbols. Their art exudes respect for their ancestors and a yearning for eternity. Today, Meroe is an archaeological reserve, where the silence is broken only by the whisper of the wind. Travelers rarely reach this place. The path leads through deserted sands and old riverbeds, but those who see the pyramids with their own eyes experience a strange feeling, as if time stands still here. Each pyramid is a frozen prayer addressed to the sky, where the stars of the same constellations shine as they did millennia ago. When the first rays of dawn touch the stone, Meroe comes to life, not as a dead city, but as a living reminder that the greatness of the human spirit does not belong to one people. The kingdom of Kush has vanished, but its shadows still stand in the desert, like sentries waiting for humanity to remember their names again. In the heart of the Amazon, where the green ocean of forest seems endless and impenetrable, beneath a layer of ancient trees lay the traces of a civilization, the existence of which humanity had never suspected. Only in recent decades, when satellites and drones have allowed aerial views of the jungle, have astonishing patterns. Geoglyphs become visible on the Earth's surface. These gigantic figures, created by human hands long before the advent of writing and metal, form circles, squares, lines, and even complex ornaments perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions. Everything points to the existence of a culture that once existed here, a culture that disappeared long before the arrival of Europeans, but left its lasting mark on the land. These geoglyphs were first noticed in the late 20th century, when forests in the Brazilian state of Acre were cleared for agriculture. From a helicopter, archaeologists saw perfect geometric shapes carved into the ground. Ditches up to 3 meters deep and over 10 meters wide formed enormous circles connected by straight corridors. When researchers began mapping the area, they discovered hundreds of such structures, scattered over an area of over 200,000 square kilometers. Some figures reach 200 meters in diameter, their symmetry is impeccable, and their orientation aligns with the position of the sun at the equinoxes. Initially, it was assumed that these were the remains of ancient defensive structures. However, the absence of ramparts and traces of settlements nearby forced a reconsideration of this hypothesis. Modern archaeologists are certain that these geoglyphs had ritual and astronomical significance. They could have been places of gatherings, sacred ceremonies, or observations of celestial movements. Layers of charcoal and ceramics found in the ditches date to the period between the 1st millennium BC and the 1st millennium AD. This means that people lived here long before the Incas, before all known civilizations of South America. The most astonishing thing is the scale. To dig such precise lines, thousands of workers and strict organization were needed. These people had to possess a knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and seasonal cycles, and all this in humid tropical conditions, where any cleared area becomes overgrown within a few years. Consequently, they constantly maintained the open areas, tended them, and passed on their knowledge from generation to generation. Scientists call this culture a pre-jungle civilization. In ancient times, the Amazon was likely not the impenetrable forest we know today. There were fields, settlements, roads, and centers, all connected in a vast network. The soil, known as terra preta, an artificially enriched mixture of coal, clay, and organic matter, is evidence of large-scale agriculture. This soil has remained fertile for millennia, and modern agronomists still cannot fully reproduce its composition. Every discovery in the Amazon disproves the long-held idea that only scattered tribes lived here before colonization. On the contrary, beneath the forest lies the memory of a complex, organized culture capable of creating gigantic engineering forms without metal or wheels. Their cities may have been built of wood and clay, materials that rotted away without a trace, leaving only lines etched into the earth. Today, the geoglyphs of the Amazon have become a symbol of the new archaeology, a science that is learning to listen to the earth through satellites and lasers. Each new image reveals new figures, spirals, triangles, intersecting corridors. Scientists are convinced that only a small fraction of what lies beneath the canopy has been discovered. Where the forest remains untouched, tens of thousands of similar structures likely lie, waiting for their moment. And yet, these figures convey not only engineering, but also poetry. One need only look at them from above, and it becomes clear. This was not simply construction, but an act of faith, an attempt to express man's connection with the sky, to reflect the harmony of the cosmos on Earth. The people who created these patterns are gone, but their lines remain like scars on the skin of the planet, a reminder of a forgotten world where humanity still knew how to speak a common language with nature. When fog descends on the jungle and the evening sun captures the outlines of these gigantic figures, it seems as if the ancient design comes to life again. Perhaps this is its true purpose, so that thousands of years from now, someone might look down upon the earth and understand. Here, in the green abyss, beat the heart of an ancient civilization about which we know almost nothing. Amid the endless expanses of the Sahara, where a hot wind howls over the dunes and the sun burns the horizon, archaeologists are increasingly reporting discoveries that could forever change our understanding of the desert. Beneath this sea of sand, which we're accustomed to thinking of as lifeless, lie traces of ancient cities, roads, and rivers. In recent years, researchers' attention has been particularly focused on the southwestern regions of the desert, where satellite images have revealed astonishing geometric shapes. The outlines of walls, straight lines of streets, and even the remains of structures stretching for kilometers. These images have caused a sensation. The Sahara, it turns out, was once home to a great civilization, erased by time and wind. It was long believed that the region had always been hostile to life. But geological research shows otherwise. About 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was a fertile plain, cut by lakes and rivers. Herds of animals grazed here, forests grew, and people lived on the banks of the rivers. The transition from the green Sahara to desert was gradual but inexorable. Climate change, caused by a shift in the Earth's orbital cycles, turned the once living lands into arid silence. Archaeologists call this forgotten world the pre-pharaonic civilization of the Sahara. Traces of its existence were first discovered in the mid-20th century by French expeditions, but they received little attention at the time. Today, thanks to laser technology and satellite mapping, scientists have been able to discern details that were previously invisible. The remains of settlements, rectangular foundations, roads connecting oases, and mysterious circular structures reminiscent of fortifications or temples. Particularly impressive are the discoveries in the Tassili Najer region of Algeria. Thousands of rock carvings have been preserved on a plateau covered in red sandstone cliffs. Scenes of hunting, dancing, processions, and depictions of boats and animals long since vanished from the region. All of this suggests the existence of a rich culture with art and complex religious beliefs. But most astonishingly, beneath the nearby sands, geophysicists have discovered anomalies indicating the presence of large stone structures, completely buried by time. Some of these structures have a clearly defined layout, possibly the remains of an ancient city. A network of settlements once existed in the central Sahara, connected by roads running along dry riverbeds. This network likely served as a trade or religious center, connecting West Africa with the Nile Valley. If this is indeed the case, we are dealing not with a single settlement, but with an entire culture that disappeared when the desert swallowed its homes. One of the most enigmatic places is the Risha structure, or Eye of the Sahara, located in Mauritania. It is a gigantic ring-shaped formation 40 kilometers in diameter, visible even from space. Although geologists explain its origin as the result of erosion and tectonic processes, some elements of the structure resemble man-made planning. Traces of ancient rivers and sedimentary rocks have been discovered around the perimeter, indicating that a water system once existed here. This region may have been the center of a large settlement buried under layers of sand. What today appears to be a lifeless wasteland was once the heart of a world brimming with movement, trade, and ritual. Archaeologists believe that the first ideas of agriculture and ancestor worship were born here, and ancient craftsmen erected stone shrines later destroyed by time. In these places, every artifact discovered, a broken vessel, a fragment of a statue, an animal bone, becomes a link in a chain connecting a forgotten past with our present. The sands of the Sahara are more than just the dust of centuries. They are a blanket beneath which an entire era sleeps. And when the lines of ancient streets appear beneath the rays of satellite radar, it seems as if the desert begins to speak. Perhaps one day humanity will truly hear its voice and understand that the origins of civilization are far broader and more ancient than we have come to believe. When the wind dies down and the stars shine above the dunes, the Sahara seems alive. Its silence is not dead. It is filled with the breath of a past that still awaits its awakening. On the border of modern-day Pakistan and northwestern India lie ancient cities whose ruins recall a civilization that once rivaled Egypt and Mesopotamia. This is the Indus Valley culture, or Harappan civilization, which existed over 4,000 years ago. Unlike its neighbors, it left us no epics or royal chronicles, only seals, pottery, and short inscriptions carved into stone. These signs represent the most enigmatic script of the ancient world. For over a century, scholars have been trying to decipher them, but even today the Indus script remains elusive, like a language lost forever. The first discovery occurred in 1922, when archaeologist John Marshall excavated the city of Mohenjo-Daro, whose streets were paved with baked brick and intersected at right angles. It was a true Bronze Age metropolis, with sewers, running water, public baths, and neat neighborhoods. Later, Harappa, another huge center, was discovered nearby. Between them were hundreds of settlements, united by a common culture and writing style. On small stone seals, archaeologists discovered images of animals, bull, unicorn, elephant, and rows of symbols unlike any known writing system. The inscriptions are short, 4 to 10 characters. They are found on pottery, amulets, and copper tablets. Initially, it was assumed that this was a form of Proto-Sumerian writing, but analysis revealed a different structure. Hundreds of researchers tried to find a clue, comparing the signs with Dravidian languages, Proto-Sanskrit, and Elamite inscriptions. However, no hypothesis yielded convincing results. At the turn of the millennium, computational linguistics revealed that the sequence of symbols follows certain grammatical patterns, confirming that this is indeed a written language and not random drawings. But its meaning remains elusive. The Indus civilization is striking not only for its enigmatic script, but also for its level of organization. Cities were planned with a precision that impresses even modern engineers. Canals, granaries, residential areas, and central squares form perfect rectangles. The absence of palaces and temples suggests that power in these societies was not centralized, but perhaps based on communal principles. No traces of wars or conquests have been found. The Indus civilization disappeared as quietly as it had appeared. Researchers suggest that an environmental disaster may have been the cause of the collapse. The rivers on which the city stood changed their courses, the soil dried out, and crop yields fell. People gradually abandoned the settlements, taking with them their culture, language, and perhaps the very meaning of writing. Thus vanished one of the world's most enigmatic civilizations, leaving us with a message no one can decipher. At the beginning of the 21st century, archaeologists discovered new settlements in the Gagagar-Hakra Valley, a region referred to in ancient texts as Sarasvati. Indo-Harappan script symbols are once again found on pottery from these cities. Perhaps this is where the key to the mystery lies. Modern researchers are using machine learning algorithms to find patterns between the symbols, and archaeologists continue to find new seals. But even if deciphered, it will change more than just the history of the region. It could shed light on the origins of human thought. Each Indus Valley seal is like a fragment of a lost library, frozen in the thoughts of people who knew how to build ideal cities but were unwilling to wage war. Their silent symbols seem to breathe through the millennia, a reminder that not every civilization speaks loudly. Some simply leave a trace that must be heard. As the sun sets over the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, the air fills with a warm light, and the lines of ancient writing seem to emerge from beneath the dust. Perhaps one day humanity will decipher these signs, and then history will speak in the voice of those who created a world where harmony was valued above power. At the edge of the planet, in the silence of Antarctica, where eternal winds carve icy plains and the sun barely touches the horizon, lies a mystery that has led scientists to question the immutability of the natural world. Satellite images taken in the early 21st century revealed strange geometric structures beneath the ice, massive forms reminiscent of man-made structures. Among them, one anomaly stands out, a symmetrical dome with distinct edges, reminiscent of the steps of an ancient temple. This discovery immediately sparked controversy, because if the structure is truly artificial, Its age could be measured in tens of thousands of years, a time when Antarctica was not yet covered in eternal ice. The artifact first attracted the attention of researchers in 2016, when the European Space Agency's geophysical satellites detected an unusual radio signal reflection at a depth of approximately 800 meters below the surface. The anomaly's shape, dome-shaped, nearly 200 meters in diameter, with regular sectors radiating from the center, was too harmonious to be random. Scientists later confirmed that this was not an equipment error. Scans of other areas reveal similar formations, some of which were aligned with the continent's ancient coastline. It is believed that the discovered structure is part of an ancient geological massif, possibly an outcrop of rock formed under ice pressure. However, other evidence suggests that Antarctica may indeed harbor the remains of landforms created during a time when the climate was milder and the continent was free of ice. Geological studies confirm that forests flourished, rivers flowed, and animals inhabited this area approximately 30 million years ago. Moreover, paleomagnetic studies indicate that even in later eras, up to 12,000 years ago, some sections of the coast may have remained ice-free. This means that the theoretical possibility of settlements here is not impossible. The regularity of the shapes is particularly intriguing. The contours resemble a stepped platform, something between a pyramid and a temple foundation. Thermal images taken from orbiting satellites reveal areas where the ice is thinner, as if a void remains above them. Perhaps cavities carved into the rock are hidden beneath the thick ice. Archaeologists are hesitant to jump to conclusions. Any research on the continent requires international coordination and incredible expense. But the very idea that Antarctica may harbor traces of prehistoric human presence has already changed our understanding of its past. In 2022, American and Norwegian researchers using radar scanners confirmed the existence of subglacial structures in several areas of Queen Maud Land. Some of these structures extend in straight lines over a kilometer long. The parallelism of these lines raises questions. Natural processes rarely create such orderly patterns. And although the official position remains cautious, discussions about the possible man-made origin of these formations continue. An artifact from Antarctica has become a symbol of the clash between science and the unknown. It reminds us that even the most inaccessible corners of the planet may hold chapters of history yet unread. Perhaps it's simply a trick of nature, an ancient landscape distorted by time and ice. But if even some of these guesses are correct, humanity will have to look at the map of its past differently. When the blizzard subsides and the ice fields glow in the light of the polar sun, it seems as if the continent itself breathes. Its whiteness conceals the memory of a time when the winds of other eras howled here. Something ancient, perhaps not human, but undoubtedly significant, slumbers beneath kilometers of ice. And while the cold preserves this secret, Antarctica remains the planet's most silent archive, its pages yet to be uncovered. Hidden behind high walls in the heart of Rome lies one of the most mysterious places on Earth, the Vatican Archives, now renamed the Apostolic Archives. Hundreds of kilometers of shelves, millions of documents, many of which have never been seen by anyone but a select circle of curators. Conserved here are papal decrees, royal letters, Inquisition records, and ancient texts capable of changing our view of human history. Among these manuscripts, according to researchers, are documents that defy accepted chronology, testimonies of events and knowledge that don't fit into the conventional picture of the past. The archive's history dates back to the early Middle Ages. As early as the 4th century AD, the Church began collecting copies of ancient texts, saving them from destruction during the barbarian invasions. Many manuscripts were copied from ancient originals, and some, according to historians, came from the libraries of Alexandria and Constantinople. Among these scrolls are texts whose authors are unknown and whose contents are sometimes astonishing. There is talk of geographical descriptions of lands unmapped in their time, astronomical observations that predate the time of Galileo, and chronicles of peoples who disappeared long before the Romans. For a long time, access to the archive was virtually closed. Only in the 19th century were researchers allowed to work with a limited number of documents, and since then, everyone who has visited has remarked on the incredible scale and strict order. Temperature and humidity are regulated to within tenths of a degree to preserve the fragile parchment pages. Many manuscripts are encased in lead capsules, protecting them from light and air. Only a small portion of the collection has been digitized, and the majority of the archives remain inaccessible. Published descriptions include references to the Codex Neeli, a manuscript supposedly translated from ancient Egyptian that contains a reference to a great flood that divided eras. It speaks of wise men who wrote down the signs of the stars to preserve the memory of the world before the flood. Scholars debate whether this is a mythological allegory or an echo of a catastrophe similar to the legend of the flood. There are also fragments of Greek texts that mention voyages to western lands beyond the ocean belt, thousands of years before Columbus's discoveries. Some researchers who have worked with ancient copies of chronicles claim that the archive contains documents demonstrating a history of Eastern civilizations that is even older than is commonly believed. One catalog mentions records of temples of white stone in what are now the sands of Arabia, dating back to a time long before the Sumerians. This information remains unconfirmed, but its very existence demonstrates how many secrets lie hidden beneath the library's veil of silence. The Vatican archives are more than just a repository. They are a mirror of human memory, gathered from all corners of the world. Scholars granted access to its holdings describe a feeling of almost physical awe. In narrow corridors, lit by soft light, lie scrolls that are 2,000 or even 3,000 years old. The parchments are fragile, but the ink is still legible. Every word, written by the hand of an ancient monk, seems to breathe, as if time itself has preserved the voice of the past. Modern technology is gradually opening up this world. Ultraviolet scanning projects make it possible to read texts that have become invisible, and digital restoration restores the lost colors of miniatures. But the more they discover, the more questions arise. How did monks know about celestial phenomena that occurred thousands of years before them? Why do some maps contain the outlines of continents discovered only in the modern era? And why are some documents still forbidden from being discussed publicly? Perhaps the answers lie not in secret conspiracies, but in a simple fact. Human history is too complex to fit into a single textbook. The Vatican archives are not a gateway to sensationalism, but a reminder that we stand on a fragile foundation, composed of fragments that have only partially survived the centuries. And each discovered sheet of parchment is a step toward understanding how polyphonic and ancient the past was. As the last rays of sun color the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, it seems as if Rome itself is listening to the whispers of its archives. Perhaps this silence holds the most important secret, not answers, but questions that remain powerful even after millennia. In northern China, in Lintong County, beneath the green hills of Shanxi, lies one of the most enigmatic monuments of the ancient world, the tomb of the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. It is surrounded by a legendary army of terracotta warriors, discovered by archaeologists in 1974. But the main secret lies deeper, underground. The central tomb, where according to legend the emperor himself rests, remains unopened. Scientists know its location, but dare not open it. According to ancient chronicles, inside are mechanical traps and streams of liquid mercury, dangerous even for modern explorers. According to the historian Sima Qian's descriptions, written a century after the emperor's death, the tomb was a subterranean palace designed with fantastic precision. It features rivers and seas recreated from mercury, and the ceiling is studded with stars made of pearls. The earthen mound rising above the tomb is only the tip of the iceberg. Modern scans have confirmed that beneath it lies a vast complex covering over 150,000 square meters. A subterranean world created so that the emperor could rule after death. Archaeologists have been studying the tomb's surroundings for decades, uncovering ever-increasing evidence of the incredible technologies possessed by 3rd century BC craftsmen. Using ground-penetrating radar and magnetic sensors, they have identified straight corridors, chambers, shafts, and vaults descending deep underground. Some areas respond to metal detectors, suggesting the presence of bronze mechanisms, possibly an ancient anti-burglar system. Chinese chronicles claim that the emperor's engineers created mechanical crossbows that would automatically trigger any attempted intrusion. No expedition has yet dared to verify whether these devices are still operational. Mercury is a source of even greater concern. Soil tests around the mound revealed abnormally high concentrations of this metal, tens of times higher than normal. This confirms ancient accounts of rivers of silvery liquid flowing through the tomb's halls. Scientists speculate that mercury was used not only as a decorative element, but also as a sealant. It was intended to symbolize immortality and simultaneously protect the tomb from tampering. Mercury vapor is deadly when exposed to air, so any excavation attempt requires technologies that currently exist. The tomb of the first emperor became an example of the grandeur and madness of the human quest for eternity. Qin Shi Huang, who united the fragmented kingdoms of China, created not only an army, roads, and a written language, but also this colossal mausoleum, which, according to legend, required the labor of over 700,000 workers. After completion, the entrances were sealed, and all the craftsmen involved in the project were supposedly buried inside so that no one could discover the secret of the tomb's construction. When archaeologists first laid eyes on terracotta warriors arrayed in battle formation, the world realized they were merely the surface of a grand design. Each warrior is unique, every detail, from the laces of their sandals to their facial expressions, executed with a mastery that transcends time. If such colossal efforts were devoted solely to protecting the emperor's chambers, one can only imagine the scale and opulence concealed within the underground residence. Chinese authorities decided not to open the tomb until technology developed to preserve everything within. This decision was a tribute to the ancient masters and a fear of destroying a priceless legacy. After all, even the touch of air could destroy something unseen for over 2,000 years. Every year, scholars and pilgrims come to Qin Shi Huang's tomb. They stand at the foot of the mound, knowing that just a few meters beneath their feet lies a subterranean world, created for the eternal reign of the dead emperor. No camera can capture the scale of this silence. There, beneath layers of clay and stone, sleeps not just a body, the era in which man first dared to build immortality with his own hands. Someday, science will open the doors to this underground palace. But for now, Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains sealed, like a book whose pages cannot be turned without the risk of destroying history itself. In the rocky deserts of Jordan, Syria, and Saudi Arabia, where the earth is cracked by the sun and the winds blow sand, the ancient past breathes beneath your feet. From a bird's-eye view, strange patterns can be discerned among the gray plateaus and lava plains, enormous stone circles so large that they can only be seen in their entirety from the sky. Local Bedouins call them jinn wheels. For science, they remain one of the most enigmatic archaeological structures of the ancient Near East. These gigantic geometric shapes were first observed by British Air Force pilots in the early 20th century. At the time, archaeologists could not believe that such complex figures could have been created in prehistoric times. However, modern research using satellites and aerial photography has revealed that there are over 1,000 such circles, scattered across a vast area from Jordan to northeastern Saudi Arabia. Some reach a diameter of 150 meters, and the structure consists of rings composed of thousands of basalt stones, laid with mathematical precision. No one knows who built these circles or why. Radiocarbon dating of organic remains in some places has shown them to be at least 8,000 years old, making them older than the Egyptian pyramids and the megaliths of Europe. Some circles consist of several concentric rings connected by radial lines, like solar disks or wheels with invisible spokes. Viewed from above, they appear as giant calendars or symbolic maps intended for the gods. Several hypotheses stand out among scientists. Some believe these are ritual sites, places for gatherings, celebrations, and burials. Animal bones, traces of fires, and flint tools have indeed been found in some circles. Others believe they are astronomical observatories. The directions of some radial lines align with the sunrise on the equinoxes and solstices. Another theory is that the circles served as territorial markers, delineating the boundaries of ancient tribes. But none of these theories yet explains everything. The scale and complexity of these structures are too great. The circles in the Harat esh-Sham desert are particularly impressive. There, among the solidified flows of ancient lava, lie dozens of perfectly preserved structures, each requiring enormous effort to create. There are no sources of water here, no signs of permanent human habitation. How could ancient builders construct such labor-intensive structures in a place uninhabitable? This question remains unanswered, Some of the stone circles are connected to other forms, straight lines, burial mounds, and mysterious kites that act as animal traps. All of this speaks of a complex system in which geometry and symbolism merge with the everyday life of ancient people. Archaeologists increasingly argue that what we see here are not isolated monuments, but a unified cultural tradition that spanned the entire region thousands of years ago. Yet, there's something elusively mystical about these stones. Looking at them from the air, it feels as if someone was attempting to communicate with the sky. Perhaps these circles were the creation of ancient astronomers seeking to bring order to the chaos of the world and connect the earth with the stars. Or perhaps they were simply rituals, long since lost in meaning, that left a geometric trace of the human quest for eternity on Earth. Today, archaeologists in the Middle East continue to document every stone, every circle. Drones and laser scanners are slowly revealing new patterns hidden beneath layers of sand and lava. But the more they discover, the more mysterious their meaning becomes. After all, these circles were built by people who knew no writing, didn't use the wheel, but already understood the shape of the cosmos. When the sun sets over the desert and shadows fall on the ancient stones, they transform into giant clock faces, measuring time not in hours, but in millennia. Perhaps one day humanity will understand what the builders of these stone wheels were trying to tell us. But for now, they remain silent, majestic, austere, incomprehensible, as if time itself were frozen in stone. Off the coast of Crimea, where the warm waves of the Black Sea wash rocky slopes and vineyard valleys, lies the ancient city of Tauric Chersonesos, a colony founded by the Greeks over 2,000 years ago. Life once teemed here, amphorae filled with wine, bazaars buzzed, and temples towered over the bay. But over time, part of the city became submerged, the seashore slowly sank, and the streets along which the citizens of Chersonesos walked disappeared into the depths. Today, this sunken site has become one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Europe, and recent underwater discoveries have stunned scientists. Among ordinary fragments of pottery and bronze, objects unlike anything known to classical scholars have been discovered. Underwater expeditions off the coast of Sevastopol have been conducted for decades, but only in recent years have the development of sonar technology made it possible to explore the sunken part of the city with high precision. At a depth of approximately 10 meters, archaeologists found the remains of residential buildings, paved roads, and, especially, fragments of complex metal objects resembling cylinders with internal partitions. One of the researchers noted their similarity to the so-called Baghdad Battery, a mysterious artifact found in Iraq and dating back to the Parthian Empire. There, as here, traces of copper and iron were found inside the vessels, and acid residues were found on the walls. All this led scientists to wonder whether the ancient Greeks used some primitive form of galvanic cell. Although the ancient battery theory remains controversial, chemical analysis did reveal traces of electrolytes, acetic acid and cream of tartar, substances that could have acted as conductors of electricity. If confirmed, the discovery would be a sensation. It would demonstrate that the ancient world possessed the principles of electricity long before Galvani and Volta. It's possible that such devices were used not for generating power, but for gilding metals. Thin gold coatings executed with unusual precision are often found in the tombs of Chersonesos. But the archaeological value of Chersonesos doesn't end with this discovery. Entire blocks of the ancient city, colonnades, house foundations, and rainwater cisterns have been preserved underwater. Divers find shards of amphorae, lead anchors, and bronze figurines. All of this creates a striking sense of time suspended beneath the sea. Sometimes a marble slab with a Greek inscription emerges from the sand, along with shells and seaweed, as if nature itself had decided to envelop history in its veil. According to geologists, part of the coast sank several meters about 2,000 years ago due to tectonic movements. The city, which stood on a cliff, gradually found itself near the water, and then beneath it. Some scientists believe that a devastating earthquake finally sent part of Chersonesos to the bottom. It is there, in layers of luminescent sand, that objects lie today that tell us about the development of ancient science and crafts. Of particular interest is the bronze fragment discovered, which consists of a system of tubes connected into a single unit. Metallographic analysis revealed a high content of tin and zinc, an unusual combination for Greek technology. It may be part of a device for distillation or electrolytic processing of metals. While researchers are currently refraining from making sweeping claims, the idea that ancient craftsmen experimented with electricity is becoming less and less far-fetched. When divers return to the surface and the sun reflects off their helmets, it seems as if the breath of the past is rising from the depths. Underwater Chersonesos is a city that didn't die, but simply passed into another dimension of time. Its walls are now home to fish, and its streets are covered with seaweed. But hidden within every column, every slab, is the memory of people whose knowledge and passion for experimentation were far deeper than we've come to believe. Today, underwater Chersonesos remains a laboratory for the archaeology of the future. Perhaps one day, it is here that humanity will understand that antiquity knew more about nature than myths allowed. And then, the sea's silence, concealing the city, will resound once again. Not with the voice of ancient gods, but with the echo of the human mind, which has always strived for light, even underwater. On a hill near the German town of Nibra in 2000, two black diggers stumbled upon a bronze sword, an axe, and a strange round object covered in a green patina. Archaeologists later realized this was one of the most significant discoveries in European archaeology of the 20th century. The Golden Disc of Nibra, an artifact dating back approximately 3,500 years, became the first known human-made depiction of the sky. Its surface is decorated with gold plates depicting the sun, moon, and stars. Among them is the constellation Pleiades, visible at certain times of the year and associated by ancient peoples with the beginning of agricultural cycles. The disc is 32 centimeters in diameter and weighs just over 2 kilograms. It is crafted from bronze, and the gold inlays are executed with jeweler's precision. Radiocarbon dating has confirmed its dating to around the 16th century BC, making it contemporary with the early Egyptian dynasties and the megaliths of Stonehenge. However, it was found far from the centers of ancient civilizations, in the heart of Europe, in lands thought to be inhabited only by tribes without writing or architecture. What initially seemed like decoration turned out to be a tool that bridged myth and astronomy. Using specialized measurements, scientists determined that the golden arcs along the edges marked the angles between the sunrise and sunset points on the solstices. This means the disc could have been used as an astronomical calendar, helping determine the timing of sowing and harvesting. A small cluster of golden dots, the Pleiades, appeared in the sky in spring, marking the beginning of the agricultural year. Thus, the disc didn't simply depict stars. It served as an observational tool, a synthesis of religious symbolism and practical science. For a long time, the artifact's origin remained a mystery. Who could have created such an object in the Bronze Age, when Europe had no cities or written language? Archaeologists have concluded that the disc's creators belonged to the Unetice culture, a mysterious people who left behind burial mounds, gold jewelry, and complex tools. These people likely had ties to Mesopotamia and the Middle East, from which they could have borrowed knowledge of celestial cycles. But the Nebra disc testifies that even then, in Northern Europe, there existed an understanding of cosmic order and a desire to express it in material form. Interestingly, the disc was not a static artifact. Its surface changed. New gold elements were added later, likely reflecting changes in calendrical calculations. This suggests that it was used for several generations, passed from hand to hand as a sacred object connecting heaven and earth. When scientists first examined it under laboratory light, they noticed polished areas around the gold inlays, marks of touch. Perhaps priests touched them during rituals, sensing the breath of the stars through the metal. The disc was found alongside swords, axes, and bracelets, indicating its special significance. Perhaps it belonged to a chieftain or supreme astronomer of its people. After its owner's death, the artifact was buried as a sacred relic. This act seemed to symbolize the end of an era, the moment when knowledge of the stars vanished into the earth, along with those who created it. Today, the Golden Disc of Nebra is housed in the State Museum of Halle. Scientists call it the birth of astronomy, and art historians call it the first map of the heavens. It has become a symbol of the human quest to understand the universe, to find order and meaning in the chaos of the heavens. Looking at it, it's hard not to feel a shudder. This piece of bronze captures the thought of an ancient man who, for the first time, realized that the stars are not a random pattern, but a reflection of time itself. In the evenings, when the sun sets over the quiet hills of Saxony, the air seems permeated with the same radiance that ancient craftsmen sought to capture in gold. The neighbor disk is more than just an artifact. It is a message from the depths of time, a reminder that even in prehistoric times, people looked to the sky not only with admiration, but also with the understanding that there, among the stars, lay a reflection of their own souls. In the heart of Cappadocia, where soft volcanic rocks form fantastical landscapes of towers and arches, lies a world carved from the Earth's depths. This is Derinkuyu Cave, or underground city, extending over 60 meters underground. It was discovered by accident. In the 1960s, a local resident decided to expand the basement of his house and stumbled upon a passage leading downward. Behind the narrow corridor lay a vast underground labyrinth. Rooms, halls, tunnels, ventilation shafts, and even wineries. Thus began one of Turkey's most astonishing archaeological stories, the story of a city built not for habitation, but for survival. Derinkuyu is just one of hundreds of underground complexes in Cappadocia, but it is the deepest and most complex of them all. Archaeologists estimate that up to 20,000 people, along with their domestic animals, could live there at any one time. The city consisted of 8 floors, connected by passages and staircases. Each level contained rooms for various purposes: living quarters, kitchens with ventilation holes, water cisterns, storerooms, stables, and even schools. The architecture was designed with mathematical precision. Air circulated freely even on the lower levels, and the stone-wheeled doors, weighing over 500 kilograms, could be locked from the inside, completely isolating the city from the outside world. Scholars still debate the exact date of this gigantic underground labyrinth's construction. Some date it to the Hittite era, the 2nd millennium BC, while others believe it was carved much later, during the early Christian period, when the inhabitants of Cappadocia sought refuge there from raids and religious persecution. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. The ancient Hittites created the first tunnels, and then, centuries later, their descendants expanded them, turning them into an entire underground city. Derinkuyu is striking not only for its scale, but also for its engineering excellence. A ventilation shaft more than 80 meters deep supplied air to all levels. A complex water supply system allowed for clean water to be obtained without rising to the surface. The walls are polished so smoothly that moisture does not accumulate. All this testifies to the high level of knowledge of the ancient builders. They understood the properties of rock, knew how to distribute loads, and knew how to build for durability. But the most important thing is the feeling that overwhelms you as you descend. Narrow corridors, dimly lit by lanterns, lead deep, turning sharply, and suddenly open into spacious halls. The silence here is almost palpable, and the air is cool, like the breath of time. It seems as if the city is still waiting for its inhabitants. On the stone shelves, you can discern traces of fireplaces, niches for vessels, and openings for lamps. Everything remains as it was left. It is believed that the underground cities of Cappadocia served as refugees during wars and invasions. People could hide here for weeks, completely cut off from the surface until the danger passed. Archaeologists have found traces of warehouses containing grain, wine, and oil, indicating long-term occupation. These cities were later used by early Christians fleeing persecution by the Roman Empire. Inside Derinkuyu, chapels with crosses carved into the walls and altars facing east have been preserved. Yet, even among similar shelters, Derinkuyu stands out. Its depth, layout, and scale are astonishing, as if this city was built not just as a temporary refuge, but as a refuge for an entire people, an entire world, submerged underground. Perhaps it was a last resort against a catastrophe, natural or human, the traces of which have been erased by time. When the light of lanterns glides along the smooth walls, it seems as if the darkness here is not hostile, but alive, preserving the breath of thousands of generations. Derinkuyu is more than just an architectural monument. It is a reminder of the power of the human instinct for survival and the desire to preserve the light even beneath thick stone. Today, the city is open to visitors, but much of it remains closed to tourists. Tunnels extend deeper than the 8th level, leading to who knows where. Archaeologists believe they connected Derinkuyu with other underground cities in Cappadocia, a network stretching for tens of kilometers. If this is true, then we are witnessing an ancient underground civilization that existed beneath the Earth's surface, where light never touched the walls. When tourists emerge to the surface and the sun blinds their eyes, they feel as if they have returned from another world, from a silence where time stands still. And perhaps it is precisely in this silence that lies the answer to history's greatest question. How many more secrets has humanity buried in the depths of the earth, unaware that they still live beneath our feet? High in the Andes, where the air is clear and cold and the mountain peaks seem to touch the stars, lies a place shrouded in silence and mystery. This is the ancient temple complex of Kalasasaya, part of the enigmatic city of Tiwanaku, once the center of a powerful culture that disappeared long before the arrival of the Incas. Among its stone ruins, archaeologists have discovered an artifact astonishing not only for its craftsmanship, but also for the knowledge it contains. This is the Stone of the Sun, or Gate of the Sun, a monolith covered in reliefs and symbols that remain elusive. Researchers call it an ancient calendar, created with a precision unimaginable for its era. The monolith weighs over 10 tons and is carved from a single block of andesite. Its surface is decorated with images of celestial bodies, complex geometric figures, and anthropomorphic deities. The central image is a figure archaeologists call the Sun God, crowned with 12 sunbeams and 24 symbolic arrows, likely representing the months or days of the year. Surrounding him are rows of carved symbols reminiscent of the lunar phases. All of this creates the impression of a carefully designed timekeeping system in which the calendar connects solar and lunar cycles with astonishing precision. Astronomical calculations have shown that the proportions of the symbols and the angles on the stone correspond to the positions of the sun at the equinoxes and solstices. Furthermore, the gate's axes are oriented strictly to the cardinal points, and the upper projections point to the points on the horizon where the sun rises on certain days of the year. Scientists speculate that through the openings in the monolith, ancient priests observed the movements of celestial bodies, creating an astronomical calendar that allowed them to determine the beginning of sowing seasons, harvest seasons, and rituals. However, the mystery lies elsewhere. To create such a system, precise knowledge of geometry, stellar observations, and a precise understanding of the year's length down to the minute are required. Modern measurements have shown that the Tiwanaku calendar recorded a solar year of 365 days, which is virtually identical to modern data. For a civilization without writing or metal, such precision seems impossible. Some archaeologists believe the sunstone reflects not simply agricultural cycles, but an ancient cosmological model in which celestial movements were linked to mythological eras. The images on the monolith possibly describe the succession of worlds, great times, in each of which the sun and stars occupied a different position. This symbolism suggests more than mere observation, but a philosophy of time, where the cosmos and human life are fused into one. Tiwanaku was built at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters above sea level, a fact as astonishing as the calendar itself. In the thin, breathable air, ancient craftsmen carved blocks weighing tens of tons, fitting them with perfect precision. The monoliths are joined without mortar, yet it's impossible to insert even a knife blade between them. All this points to a highly sophisticated level of engineering. But how exactly they lifted and moved such stones remains a mystery. As the sun rises over the plateau, its rays pass through the opening of the Gate of the Sun, illuminating the central figure. At this moment, the ancient temple seems to come alive. The stone is filled with golden light, and the carved symbols begin to sparkle, as if the sun god himself were welcoming the new day. Tourists standing at the foot of the monolith are transfixed. This spectacle conveys not just antiquity, but the breath of the cosmos transformed into stone. To this day, scholars have not reached a consensus on the calendar's true function. Perhaps it was an instrument of observation, perhaps a symbol of faith, or perhaps a reflection of the knowledge humanity once possessed and lost. The Sunstone doesn't provide answers. It asks questions about the origins of time, about man's place in the universe, about the memory imprinted in stone. As the evening rays slowly fade behind the mountains, the Gate of the Sun plunges into shadow, and it seems as if the figure of the deity is once again closing the doors between worlds. Tiwanaku sleeps, but its stones still flicker with knowledge from the depths of time, knowledge we are only beginning to understand. In eastern Lebanon, at the foot of the Anti-Lebanon Mountains, lie the ruins of the city of Baalbek, one of the most ancient and mysterious places on the planet. Here, on a stone platform, the columns of the Temple of Jupiter rise majestically, the surviving remains of a complex built during the Roman Empire. But beneath this visible layer of history lies something far more ancient and inexplicable. The base of the Temple Plateau, on which the Romans erected their sanctuaries, is composed of gigantic blocks, the size and weight of which astound even modern engineers. Some of them reach 20 meters in length and weigh over 1,000 tons. No one knows who or how managed to move and install these stone monoliths with such precision, as if they were machine cut. These blocks are known as the Baalbek Trilithon. They lie at the base of the platform, perfectly fitted together without the slightest gap. Even with modern technology, lifting and placing such blocks would require super powerful cranes and months of calculations. However, the Baalbek blocks were installed thousands of years ago, long before the Romans. Geological analysis has shown that the stone was quarried from local quarries located kilometers from the temple and then somehow transported across rugged terrain with no trace of roads or lifting equipment. In the 20th century, archaeologists discovered another monolith in a nearby quarry, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, over 20 meters long and weighing approximately 1,200 tons. It remained buried as if the craftsman had not completed the work. Later, 2 more blocks were found nearby, even larger, each estimated to weigh 1,500 tons. These blanks stand as silent witnesses to a technology we know nothing about. Perhaps they were intended for further expansion of the platform, or perhaps for temples that were never built. The Romans, who arrived in Baalbek millennia later, used the ancient platform as a ready-made foundation for their grand sanctuary. They erected a temple complex dedicated to Jupiter, Venus, and Bacchus on it. But even their skill cannot compare to the work of the unknown builders who left the Trilithon. The stone blocks of the lower tiers bear traces of erosion, indicating a significantly greater age than the Roman masonry. Some researchers believe these foundations may have existed as early as the 2nd millennium BC. Perhaps they belonged to the Phoenicians, or an even older culture whose name has faded from memory. Baalbek is astonishing not only for its size, but also for the precision of its engineering calculations. The platform is leveled to within fractions of a degree. This is impossible without meticulous measurements, unattainable in the Stone and Bronze Ages. Why the ancient builders created such a monumental foundation remains a mystery. Some see it as a cult center, others as an astronomical platform oriented by the stars. But whatever it was, it served a purpose beyond mere construction. Archaeologists who have worked at the site often speak of a sense of majestic presence, as if the stone itself holds the energy of time. Standing at the foot of the Trilithon, everything around seems insignificant. One feels like a grain of sand compared to the labor left behind by hands that have long since turned to dust. In the rays of the setting sun, the stones of Baalbek are tinged with copper gold, seeming to recall the eras when hymns resounded here and the banners of priests rustled. Today these gigantic blocks lie motionless, but in their silence one senses the movement of centuries, like the breath of the earth, preserving the memory of a civilization we can neither name nor understand. Perhaps one day technology will allow us to determine precisely who erected these colossi and how, but perhaps the answer will never be found, and then Baalbek will forever remain a monument to human mystery, a granite enigma cast by time. When the evening shadow falls across the platform and the first stars appear over the mountains, the ancient city seems to come alive. It is silent, but its silence speaks louder than any words. In the tropical forests of Mexico, where the cries of toucans can be heard in the shade of cacao trees and the scent of damp earth fills the air, lie the witnesses of a civilization whose name is still pronounced with awe and bewilderment. These are the Olmecs, a people who lived here over 3,000 years ago and vanished, leaving behind enigmatic stone heads, gigantic and motionless, like guardians of the past. These monoliths have become symbols of an unknown era that predates all known Mesoamerican cultures. No one knows for sure who the Olmecs were, where they came from, or how they were able to create sculptures that even today inspire admiration among stone craftsmen. 17 heads were found, each carved from a single block of basalt, a rock so hard that it is extremely difficult to work even with modern tools. The largest reaches 3 meters in height and weighs over 40 tons. All depict human faces with wide cheekbones, flat noses, strong lips, and eyes frozen not with expression, but with presence. The faces vary, some are stern, others calm, and still others seem pensive. Archaeologists speculate that these are portraits of rulers, immortalized in stone. But how the ancient artisans achieved such detail and expressiveness remains a mystery. The basalt was quarried in the Tuxtla Mountains, over 80 kilometers from the installation sites. Each block had to not only be cut, but also transported by river or through the jungle without the use of wheels or metal tools. Scholars have attempted to reconstruct the process, but even with ropes, logs, and rafts, moving such a load seems impossible. Yet the Olmec heads weren't simply transported. They were installed with perfect precision and oriented according to the cardinal directions, as if the builders possessed a thorough understanding of geography and astronomy. Upon closer inspection, traces of grinding are visible on the sculpture's surfaces, as if the stone had been polished to a mirror shine. Some researchers believe the artisans used sand abrasives, water, and quartz dust, working for weeks on each detail. However, the density and quality of the surface are so uniform that it seems the tools used to create the heads were far more sophisticated than modern archaeological models allow. But it's not just the technique that raises questions. The style and realism of the sculptures are out of context for the time. At a time when most Mesoamerican peoples were creating primitive images from clay and wood, the Olmecs possessed a mastery of proportion, symmetry, and a sense of volume unmatched even by later civilizations. Their art seems not a beginning, but a culmination, the result of a long development about which we know nothing. One gets the sense that the Olmecs inherited knowledge from somewhere else, from a source long since lost to human memory. Many sculptures feature helmets with patterns and straps, reminiscent of ancient warriors or athletes, but they may symbolize something more: membership in a sacred rite or clan. Some heads show signs of damage and intentional notches, possibly made after their installation. This suggests that over time, they lost their cult significance and were reinterpreted by descendants. The Olmecs left behind not only heads, but also pyramids, ball courts, stone altars, and ritual objects made of jade. All this points to a developed social structure and spiritual culture based on astronomy, calendars, and mythology. Their cities, La Venta, San Lorenzo, Tres Zapotes, were centers where power and faith merged. And yet, despite the archaeological evidence, the Olmecs remain a people without a written language or a name, known only by what they left behind. Today, the Olmec stoneheads stand in the open air, surrounded by the humid tropical air. Raindrops glisten on their surfaces, trickling down their cheekbones, as if time itself weeps for a forgotten people. Tourists and scholars come to them, pause, gaze into these silent faces, and sense a strange presence, as if the stones remember those who created them, and wait for humanity to once again recall their language. When the sun sets below the horizon and the shadows of the trees fall across the faces of the giants, they seem to come alive. Their silence becomes the sound of eternity, a voice reaching from the depths of 3 millennia. The Olmec stoneheads are more than just artifacts. They are a message from a civilization that saw the world differently and perhaps knew more about it than we are willing to accept. In the vast expanses of China's Shanxi province, not far from the ancient city of Xi'an, hidden in the shadow of rolling hills covered in grass and wheat, lies something long kept silent by official sources. Here, among the plains, rise dozens of gigantic mounds, their outlines resembling pyramids from above. These mysterious structures, known as the Moon Pyramids of China, have long been the subject of legend and controversy. Some believe them to be ordinary imperial tombs, while others are convinced they are evidence of a lost era, the remains of a civilization whose knowledge surpassed the understanding of its time. The story began in the 1940s when an American pilot flying over central China spotted a huge pyramidal structure. Its summit shone in the sun, while its base stretched for hundreds of meters. After his report was published, newspapers began talking about the White Pyramid, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. However, access to the area was soon closed, and press reports were reduced to dry descriptions of ancient burial mounds. Over 100 pyramidal mounds in the vicinity of Xi'an, most of which are tombs of rulers and nobles of the Zhou, Qin, and Han dynasties. But what astounds researchers is the geometric precision and scale of some of the structures. The largest pyramid exceeds 80 meters in height, and its sides are oriented strictly according to the cardinal directions. Its base forms a perfect square, and the interior, according to ancient chronicles, is lined with bronze and filled with rare minerals. Modern satellite images reveal not only individual pyramids, but entire complexes arranged in symmetrical rows, seemingly governed by an invisible plan. Some of them are arranged in such a way as to form figures reminiscent of constellations. Particularly striking is the alignment of the three largest pyramids with the configuration of the stars of Orion's belt, a symbol associated with eternal life and ascension in many ancient cultures. However, the most mysterious pyramids are located in a closed-to-the-public zone, an area under military control. Access is strictly limited, photography is prohibited, and private expeditions are prevented. The official line is that these sites require protection due to their archaeological value and the risk of destruction, but skeptics believe that discoveries hidden underground could change our understanding of China's ancient history. According to ancient sources, some pyramids housed emperors, surrounded by jewels, jade artifacts, and complex mechanisms symbolizing celestial order. There are also references to underground corridors leading to chambers of the moon, chambers whose walls are covered with images of stars and luminous bodies. Perhaps this is why these pyramids were called lunar. They reflected not the earthly, but the celestial order of the world. Scientists seeking permission to excavate have been repeatedly denied. The Chinese government attributes this to the need to preserve the monuments and their technological unpreparedness for their conservation. But the very idea of such grandiose structures, hidden from view, sparks the imagination. Who built them? Why in this particular location? And why did they reproduce the order of the stars in the earth? When the fog lifts from the plateau and the sun casts a golden glow on the tops of the mounds, it feels as if these hills are truly breathing, as if history itself sleeps beneath them. People living nearby say that at night, a faint glow, like that of the moon, sometimes appears on the tops of the pyramids. No one knows whether this is a trick of the light or an echo of ancient energies locked within the stone. Today, the moon pyramids remain one of Asia's most poorly understood mysteries. They connect the earthly and the cosmic, the material and the symbolic. Each one is like a gesture imprinted upon the sky, reaching across the centuries. And perhaps one day, when the gates of these pyramids are opened, humanity will discover what lay behind this silent stone message, the hubris of emperors or an ancient knowledge of the rhythm of the universe that we have lost. When night falls on the plains of Shanxi and the moon rises above the horizon, its light falls upon the pyramids, turning them into silver ghosts of time. They stand motionless, like witnesses who cannot speak, yet who see everything. Deep in the jungles of Central America, where ancient Mayan cities still tower above the roots of tropical trees, archaeologists have discovered artifacts that still baffle science. These are crystal skulls, perfectly chiseled from a single piece of quartz, transparent, cold, and eerily precise. Their facets reflect the light, so that it seems as if a dim flame burns within. No one knows who created these objects or how, as the technology used to craft them remains a mystery even to modern engineers. The first crystal skulls appeared in the mid-19th century. One of them was found in Belize, presumably in the ruins of the city of Lubantun, and was named the Mitchell-Hedges skull. It became the most famous and most enigmatic of all. Its features are so anatomically accurate that doctors and sculptors acknowledge that it is not just a work of art, but the result of a profound knowledge of human anatomy. The skull was carved from a single piece of rock crystal, without any trace of tools. Prismatic elements were found within its cranium that refract light, creating the effect of moving pupils, as if the artifact were observing the viewer. Scientific examinations conducted in London and Paris revealed that the quartz structure showed no traces of metal or abrasive processing. No known stone-cutting technology, even those using diamond, could have accomplished such a feat without leaving microscopic scratches. Yet the skull's surface was polished to a perfect smoothness. Engineers from Hewlett-Packard, who examined the artifact in the 1980s, admitted that producing a similar object today, despite all the advances in technology, would require decades of labor and incredible precision. But the mystery isn't just about the technology. The quartz from which the skulls are made has piezoelectric properties. When exposed to pressure or temperature, it creates a weak electrical charge. Some scientists have hypothesized that these artifacts could have been used in rituals involving acoustics or light. Perhaps ancient priests knew how to make crystals resonate, amplifying sound or light in temple spaces. This idea sounds almost fantastical, but Mayan architecture does indeed include temples with perfect acoustics, where a single word can be heard across the plaza. There are at least a dozen crystal skulls found in various regions of Mesoamerica, Honduras, Mexico, and Guatemala. They vary in size and shape, but all are crafted with the same artistry. Some archaeologists believe they are symbols of power or images of gods, while others believe they are repositories of knowledge, a kind of crystalline archive. Mayan legends mention that 13 skulls were created by ancient priests to preserve the memory of the first world, the time when the gods walked among people. These texts should not be taken literally, but the motif of memory enshrined in crystal recurs in various myths. The artifacts have sparked and continue to spark controversy. Some are recognized as late forgeries, created in the 19th and 20th centuries for collectors. But some specimens, especially the oldest, show signs of ancient processing, incompatible with the capabilities of their time. Even if we accept that they are all human creations, the question remains: how was this done, and why? When museum visitors approach these skulls, they are greeted by a sense of unreality. The transparent crystal, reflecting the light, seems to have a life of its own. It seems as if within its depths lies the breath of an ancient world, knowledge to which we have lost the key. Perhaps, for the creators of these artifacts, crystal was not just a material, but a conduit between worlds, a way to see the invisible, to hear the silent. Today, crystal skulls are more than just museum exhibits, but a symbol that ancient civilizations may have known more about matter and energy than is commonly believed. Their existence reminds us that the further we delve into the past, the more complex the line between myth and science becomes. And perhaps, somewhere in the jungle, those very 13 skulls still rest, waiting to tell the world a story too ancient to be believed. When a ray of sunlight falls on a transparent skull, a light flares within, cold, alive, almost sentient. And in that moment, time seems to cease to exist, and the past stares us straight in the eye. Off the coast of Denmark, where the gray North Sea meets the sky, archaeologists have discovered what's already being called Scandinavian Troy, an ancient Bronze Age settlement that sank thousands of years ago. Beneath the cold water, amid seaweed and sand deposits, lie the remains of dwellings, tools, and wooden structures, miraculously preserved by the low temperatures and gentle currents. This discovery was a sensation. It revealed that thousands of years before the Vikings, a sophisticated culture existed in the northern seas, capable of construction, navigation, and trade, when Europe was just emerging from the Ice Age. Archaeologists discovered the settlement by chance during an underwater survey of coastal areas near Cape Horn. At a depth of about 3 meters, echo sounders revealed the outlines of linear structures. When the divers descended to the bottom, a breathtaking scene unfolded before them. Rows of wooden piles, the remains of walls and pavements, ceramic vessels, bronze knives, spearheads, and jewelry. Dating revealed an age of over 3,000 years, a time when megaliths were being built in the south and northern Europe was considered a wilderness. But the settlement at Yornr dispels this myth. Everything suggests that there was a port center here, a place where people engaged in trade, crafts, and possibly worship of the sea gods. Fragments of boats, parts of nets, and amphorae containing traces of olive oil and resin, goods imported from the Mediterranean, were found in the seabed sediments. This means that as early as the Bronze Age, the Scandinavians had maritime connections with southern peoples, exchanging metal, amber, and textiles. Particular attention was drawn to the wooden structures, laid in several layers. They form a unique platform on which the houses likely stood. Some beams are so well preserved that traces of carving and craftsman's marks are visible. The wood is oak, worked with fire and copper tools. This fact is astonishing. Working such a hard material required high temperatures and a knowledge of metallurgy. According to the researchers, the settlement's inhabitants were as skilled in using bronze tools as Mediterranean craftsmen. Numerous ceramic fragments decorated with geometric patterns, characteristic of the Bronze Age Nordic circle culture, were found in the sand layers. Among the finds were women's jewelry, bracelets, pins, and amber pendants. One of them depicts a solar disk with radiating rays, likely a symbol of the sun, cult common throughout northern Europe. All indications are that this site had not only economic but also religious significance. But what happened to this city? Why did it end up underwater? Geologists have discovered that around 11 centuries BC, sea levels rose sharply. This was a time of climatic fluctuations, when melting glaciers caused massive flooding. The water gradually engulfed the coastline, inundating villages and ports. People abandoned their homes, taking their essentials, and their world sank beneath the waves. Everything that remained was preserved in the cold seabed layers, as if preserved in time. Underwater archaeologists say that when they descend there, they feel like guests from the future visiting a living museum. On the seabed lie charred beams, fire pits, fragments of pottery, and among them, bronze objects, glittering in the light of lanterns, as if freshly smelted. Where voices once resounded, now only the muffled echo of breathing from an oxygen tank can be heard. The Scandinavian Troy changed our understanding of the ancient North. It proves that, 1,500 years before the founding of Rome, people lived here, building cities, mastering shipbuilding, and having their own religion based on the cycles of the sun and sea. Perhaps their descendants became those later known as Vikings, inheriting the memory of water as an element connecting worlds. When the storm subsides and the water above the underwater ruins becomes clear, the outlines of streets and houses become visible in the rays of the northern sun. The seabed seems to come alive, as if a city rises from the depths of time to remind us. The North has always been home to great stories, but its memory is hidden not in the sand, but beneath the waves. On the high Altiplano Plateau, in the heart of Bolivia, where the air is thin and the sky seems closer than anywhere else on Earth, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku, a place shrouded in mystery and legend. Its monolithic ruins, carved from incredibly hard stone, have long amazed archaeologists with their precision. But recently, something was discovered beneath these stones that could rewrite the entire history of pre-Columbian civilizations. In the 2020s, ground-penetrating radar was used to discover a network of underground galleries and chambers beneath Tiwanaku, extending tens of meters below the surface. Their shape and arrangement leave no doubt. They were carved deliberately, and this discovery has forced scientists to reconsider the age of the city itself. Until now, it was believed that Tiwanaku arose around the first half of the first millennium BC. But radiocarbon dating of materials from newly discovered underground passages has revealed an age of at least 5,000 years, and possibly even older. This means the city predates the Incas, Mayans, and even the Egyptian pyramids. The discovery was so sensational that archaeologists are comparing it to the discovery of Troy or Pompeii. Tiwanaku now appears to be not just a religious center, but evidence of a highly developed culture that disappeared long before the first chroniclers could recount it. Galleries extend beneath the main temple, Kalasa Saya, and beneath the Gate of the Sun, the very same monolith believed to have stood on the surface since time immemorial. The underground corridors are lined with perfectly fitted stones, many of which weighed several tons. They connect circular halls with niches and projections, possibly used to house statues or ritual objects. Faint traces of symbols and carved patterns reminiscent of solar and stellar motifs have been preserved on the walls. All this suggests the existence of a developed cult of astronomy and time, a religion closely linked to the sky. Most astonishingly, many of the stones used for construction are composed of andesite and sandstone, quarried from tens of kilometers away. How the inhabitants of the ancient plateau managed to transport these blocks across rugged terrain remains a mystery. Scientists speculate that the underground corridors may have served as part of a ritual system connecting the earthly and celestial worlds. When the underground chambers filled with water during rainfall, they reflected the stars, creating the illusion of a subterranean sky, a living mirror of the cosmos. A second level beneath the city, a system of chambers extending even deeper. Some of these chambers are currently inaccessible due to the risk of collapse, but geophysical data reveals the presence of large voids, possibly ancient sanctuaries. Archaeologists speculate that artifacts belonging to the priests or kings of Tiwanaku may have been stored here. These chambers may contain objects that could explain how this culture acquired its incredible knowledge of celestial movements and geometry. The ruins of Tiwanaku themselves have always been astonishing in their architecture. The stone blocks are fitted to within a fraction of a millimeter, and the corners are cut so precisely that even modern engineers admit that such work could only have been accomplished with precision tools. Now that it has become clear that an entire network of underground structures lies beneath the surface, scientists are asking a new question. Perhaps the city we see was merely the apex of a colossal underground complex, carved into earth and rock long before the rise of the known civilizations of South America. Local Aymara legends tell of a people who emerged from underground, who built cities without ever seeing the sun, and who one day vanished, leaving behind sacred stones. Until recently, this was considered myth, but now that a network of underground structures has indeed been discovered beneath Tiwanaku, these stories take on a new resonance. Perhaps the memory of them is not just a legend, but an echo of a distant reality frozen in the layers of the earth. When the sun sets behind the cold peaks of the Andes and shadows fall upon the ruins, it seems as if another world breathes beneath your feet. And if you listen closely, you can hear the faint echo of the footsteps of those who once walked these corridors through the centuries, measuring not years, but eras. In July 2018, as the Egyptian heat melted the asphalt, a construction crew in Alexandria stumbled upon what should have been a routine find, an underground chamber dating back to the Ptolemaic period. But hidden beneath a thick layer of sand was a black granite sarcophagus, so enormous and perfectly sealed that its discovery immediately caused a stir. 3 meters long, almost 2 meters high, weighing 30 tons, and not a single inscription, symbol, or name. It looked as if someone had deliberately intended for no one to know who lay within. The world held its breath. Archaeologists were confronted with a mystery that had remained unsolved for centuries. The sarcophagus was buried at a depth of 5 meters. Its lid was so tightly sealed to its base that, even after 2,000 years, the interior remained thick with darkness and a smell that archaeologists described as a mixture of decay and antiquity. When the sarcophagus was finally opened, in the presence of officials and cameras, they expected to find something extraordinary, perhaps the body of a great military leader, or perhaps even Alexander the Great, whose tomb remains undiscovered to this day. But instead of gold jewelry and ritual inscriptions, something else was found inside. 3 skeletons, submerged in a murky reddish liquid that would later be called sarcophagus solution. This ominous mixture turned out to be water that had seeped in through micro cracks, mixed with decomposed organic remains and granite particles. Archaeologists analyzed the material and discovered that this was not a royal burial, but a collective one, likely belonging to military or high-ranking officials of the Ptolemaic era who lived around the 2nd century BC. However, there were too many oddities. The bodies were laid carelessly, as if hastily, without sarcophagi or burial goods. The absence of inscriptions and amulets was contrary to Egyptian custom. Why such a massive and expensive sarcophagus was used for such an unusual burial remained a mystery. Some Egyptologists have suggested that the sarcophagus may have been reused during a time of crisis when the country's resources were depleted, but the material, black granite from Aswan, extremely difficult to work, requiring weeks of polishing, indicated a special status. Furthermore, analysis showed that the sarcophagus was custom-made to its size, not recycled from an old one. This seems like too much effort for a burial that was not intended to commemorate the deceased. When news of the discovery spread around the world, a wave of rumors and fantasies immediately erupted around the find. The internet was flooded with theories ranging from curses to ancient experiments. Some saw something mystical in the black water, others the traces of chemical processes. However, even skeptics admit, the sarcophagus's emotional impact was colossal. It seemed like a symbol of the unknown, massive, silent, nameless. As if Egypt itself had decided to remind everyone that its secrets were still far from being solved. After the autopsy, the sarcophagus was carefully cleaned and transported to the National Museum of Alexandria. The skeletons were subjected to DNA analysis. They were identified as a middle-aged man, a woman, and a young man, possibly related or members of the same family. The cause of death remains unknown, but even these facts have not dispelled the sense of mystery. In the shadow of ancient columns, amid the bustling city, the sarcophagus stands on display today. Heavy, smooth, reflecting the light like a mirror. People approach it, and for a moment, the hubbub of the museum fades. It seems as if the granite holds not just bodies, but the very idea of mystery that humanity encounters every time it peers into the past. The black sarcophagus became a final reminder that archaeology is not only a study of bones and stones, but also a dialogue with silence, Sometimes it responds not with words, but with a feeling that we stand before something older than memory, deeper than time, and perhaps knows us better than we know it. When the evening sun touches the domes of Alexandria and reflects off the polished granite of the sarcophagus, it seems as if a glow of ancient light still smolders deep within the stone, the same light that the world saw before us, and which, like the mysteries of Egypt, will never fade.